Hunter Valley bus driver Brett Button killed 20 and injured more than 25. He received his sentence today from that terrible accident in the Hunter Valley. 32 years imprisonment with a non-parole period of 24 years. Alex, has the judge got this right?
Well, it's certainly a tough sentence. I can understand victims saying that no amount of time is enough, but 32 years is a lifetime for this fellow, and not to mention what would be going on in his head all the way through those 32 years. And his commentary today said as much as we would probably think. It's a huge result for the victims, but of course it's never going to bring their children back, and it's a tragic case all round, Chris. Yeah,
it is just tragic. 24 years. He no doubt didn't do it deliberately. Yeah. He was grossly careless, but 24 years, which at 59 years of age brings him out of jail at the very earliest at 83 years of age. Anyway, The other big story, and we'll get to this in detail a little later in the program, is this anti-Israel mob. They found another venue today, Prue, the Melbourne Weapons Expo, and again the police need to be stoned and violence needs to be part of the normal protesting modus operandi. Your reactions?
Well, I was disgusted, as I think most Australians would be. I think even if you have some sympathy for the Gaza situation and what's going on there, you would have to say that this is a step too far when we've got this mob of activists and people who generally, I think, have hijacked perhaps that whole issue just to prove a point because they hate the West. And what's happening now is that I think that people are saying, well, go back. We don't want you to import your troubles here. And it would be good. Of course, most of them disguise themselves, hid under masks, etc., and probably will be very hard to distinguish who they are. But if they're not Australian citizens, we don't want them here. Multiculturalism has always been a very successful thing in Australia, but now people are questioning it, and we have to look at what's gone on with Albanese allowing Palestinians to come here unchecked. We're all terrified of what we're importing, and we're seeing it on the streets now.
Yeah, and there is a link between the two. I think you're exactly right. Peter Dutton has warned today that the minerals sector and the economy will be smashed if the Greens and the Teals hold the balance of power after the next election. It'll be an unmitigated disaster, he said this afternoon. We've seen this movie before, haven't we, Alex?
We certainly have, and we'll probably see it again in the future. But look, he's right to call this out. We've discussed this before, Chris, that these minority groups in politics only cause dysfunction. I'm so pleased he's got nuclear power on the table. I think that's going to be a real issue in the election campaign. We've got the Teals who won't claim to be a party, and yet they come up with these statistics of what they want in emissions reductions that are totally unrealistic. So I think let's go to the nuclear debate. Let's start to address these issues, and let's have a party win an election. This minority work is just destroying our country bit by bit.
Yeah. Prue, the Teals today demanded a 75% emissions reduction by 2035, the demolition of an economy.
Totally, Smithy. When you look at teal, it's a lighter shade of green, isn't it? Another shade of green. And that's what they've proven. They're adopting the green stance where they hate anything that's going to boost this economy, and pay for the ridiculous social issues that they're pontificating about, and I just feel that, we need to get really strong about the fact that if we vote for a Green or an independent, we're neutralising the effect of a main party. Yeah. And we've got this situation where we know that Albanese is going to compromise, he's going to deal with the devil Greens, and this would be so wrong and so bad for Australia. So let's hope people will wake up. They may not like everything that Dutton's saying, or in fact, if Albanese, I'd rather see a majority government, not a minority. I'm hoping it's going to be a majority Liberal government, but either way, we cannot allow these minor parties to, really, I believe, create so much mayhem and compromise policy.
Something completely different. Australian supermodel Elle Macpherson continues to divide Australians on this book tour of hers. It's a debate now, Alex, about whether conventional cancer therapy is the way to deal with a potentially deadly diagnosis. I will not take medical advice from someone like Elle Macpherson. What about you?
Well, I think the trouble is when people like Elle Macpherson come out and have this commentary, people do listen. And the reality is that medicine today is exceptional on multiple fronts, particularly cancer, and we've got to respect that. There's also the principle of holistic medicine, right, where people look at their health from a whole range of perspectives and can add it to what is important medicine, but they're not alternatives. Holistic medicine is a great thing, but technical medicine around cancer and everything else is essential. And I think even Tracy Grimshaw at Nine talked about trying to get the balance right in her conversation because she was aware that too much conversation around alternates would take people down a path that could be detrimental to their health.
Yeah, Prue, you've had a brush with cancer, a very serious one. Your family, without getting too personal, your family is going through another issue on this front. What's been your reaction to Elle Macpherson's interviews?
That was totally irresponsible, Smithy. Look, everybody makes their choices, but when as you said, she's an icon, she's a great influencer. And speaking as someone who really had to go through a lot of chemo, a lot of radiation to kill my cancer, and looking at the fact that we have the best medical teams in Australia. We're so lucky here. Of course, go down a holistic way in terms of I change my diet. You do things to try and make yourself as well as you can. But at the same time, people don't want to be, you've got to be influenced by your medical teams, not by someone who just got it lucky. And who knows? She says she's in remission. Who knows what's going to happen?
That's right.
So I think it was totally irresponsible of her.
All right. Who won today's US presidential debate, Alex Malley?
Well, I have to say that Kamala came from a low expectation level and she handled herself quite well. And she, as a prosecutor, wound up Donald and he ran with it. So there's no doubt about that. However, his focus remained where it needs to be for him to win the election. And that was around illegal immigration and the economy. And his hits in the social media area are nailing any opposition he could possibly have. So I think he's probably learned a few things today about how to deal with Kamala in a different way. But I think fundamentally he's staying in his zone. And I did read that a Labor group, a Labor industry group, talked about since 2019, and this is where Trump bats, non-American citizens, there were 3 million jobs growing in their area. And for US citizens over the same period, 1.4 million lost their jobs. So that's where he's driving this debate himself. And I think this election will be more about that than what happened today.
Prue, will the debate sway the polls at all?
I think it will influence some people, Smithy, but as you say, it's the college vote in Pennsylvania, which is the main one. The college people are normally into social media. I think she's a fake. I think you can tell she's a fake, but he was very undisciplined today. I think he lost a lot of opportunities there. And so he needs to start taking a bit of advice. I think the ego has landed too much with Trump.
Yeah.
And, I'm rooting for him because I think it will be such a dangerous world if she gets in.
Yeah, she played the narcissistic card with him and he fell for it. Now, I do want to talk about her laugh. She's tried to use it again today in the debate to a much lesser degree. Let me remind you both, though, of what she's become famous for.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Hello.
I want to talk to you. Okay, I can first.
What? They want to know now.
You said cassette.
Over there after two.
Round brush. I mean,
I was waiting for you to say it. Love goodness.
we're like, how she always got to say you and
You may clap.
And your answer is part of the job.
So,
Jesus,
okay, she don't need that.
I'm sure.
Okay. You're welcome. Pull out a Venn diagram.
Now, we've been laughing about the laugh, but I want to analyse laughter for a second. Professor Sophie Scott's TED Talk, Why We Laugh, attracted over 4.5 million views. Genuine laughter, Scott argues, helps reduce stress by immediately lowering heart rates and blood pressure. She says it helps us regulate our emotions and makes us feel better. And psychologists are now saying that Kamala's laugh could be an electoral plus. Alex?
Well, I know this is a family program, but I have to say that having been a parent of 7 children and 8 grandchildren, smiling normally is followed by a great excess of wind. And perhaps we've got the same issue here. But look, there's no doubt at the moment, because this has been such an aggressive campaign, super aggressive, super personal, someone who actually laughs a bit and looks like they can be jovial will probably give them some sort of vote increase. But the reality is we've got to have some substance in the last 50 days of this election, and I don't think laughter's necessarily going to get anyone over the line.
She's clearly masking her vacuous intellect by that laughter, Prue, but is it working for some, do you think?
Well, are we laughing with her or at her? It may work with some people, but you just have to preface it. Look, we all love a good laugh, but it's normally prefaced by something funny. What she ever says is just ludicrous and insane. So I think I find her on the spectrum also, that she's laughing, but really it's lunacy. It's a lunatic's laugh. So I'm hoping it goes against her, to be frankly.
Yeah.
I'm laughing at her.